Hello, everyone. My name is Shadi Reyes from Detroit Medical Center. I am presenting to you the summary of the major conferences in 2022. And this time I'm going to be coming to you covering CRT 2022. I'm privileged to have Sandeep Nathan. He's the Associate Professor of Medicine, Medical Director of the Cardiac Intensive Care Unit, and Co-Director of the Cardiac Cath Lab at University of Chicago. Sandeep, thanks for being with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Shadi. Thank you for having me.
I know you were assigned by SCAI Communication Committee to summarize a few trials for the CRT 2022. One of the highlights was a low-risk TAVR. Can you please summarize the trials for us?
Yeah, absolutely. The low-risk TAVR trial, I think, is an important trial for a number of reasons that I'll get into. It was presented by Dr. Ron Waxman of MedStar. On behalf of the 11 participating sites in that trial, he shared with us the data from 200 low-risk patients undergoing TAVR with transcatheter heart valves. The majority of those patients received balloon expandable valves. The minority received self-expanding valves, but I think it's generalizable to the low-risk TAVR population in general. I think it's important to note that this was the first investigational device exemption trial for low-risk patients that was granted by the FDA. They enrolled between 2016 and 2018. You'll recall, Shadi, that this predates the FDA approval for low-risk TAVR, which came in August of 2019.
Indeed.
In essence, 200 patients were recruited at low and moderate volume TAVR sites. And that becomes important also because when we think about all of these new device trials, we say, well, the outcomes look great, but is this something that's reproducible at my center or every center? And I think that when you take it to competent operators, but perhaps not at the highest volume sites, it sort of reaffirms the message that, that the therapy actually works. The top line message from the low-risk TAVR trial was that the therapy actually works in low-risk patients. How were they low risk? These were on average 74-year-old patients with very low STS scores, about 3% STS score. The majority were male, narrow majority were male, about 62%. And they had really good outcomes. At 30 days, mortality was 0. At 1 year, 3%. 2 years, 4%, 2 years, 4%, 3 years was 8. And then finally, the 4-year endpoint was what they reported at CRT. That was about 12%, but mostly non-cardiac death. There was also sort of an interesting side note to this, which was that hypoattenuated leaflet thickening, or HALT, was seen in a certain proportion of these patients, about 14% of these patients at 30 days. But it didn't play out in terms of any sort of clinically relevant event or valve dysfunction, valve deterioration all the way out to 4 years. So I think all in all, very reassuring, maybe not practice changing because we're already well into the era of low-risk TAVR, and there's now society guidelines to support that and so forth. But I think it's incredibly affirming to see that these kinds of results are achievable at low and moderate volume centers.
Last comment, Sandeep, is about the durability of the valves that we have now. I know between 16 to 19, that most likely was the most recent iteration of the balloon expandable valves. But what's your comments on durability of these valves compared to the surgical valves?
Yeah. It's a great question, Shadi. And I think that, this is something that we always discuss in Valve Conference about, well, if this 61-year-old has TAVR or 65-year-old has TAVR, what's it going to look like in 10 years or 15 years for them? It's interesting that, that the percentage of HALT was as high as it was in this study, but it's assuring that, gradients didn't seem to creep up. They didn't seem to have clinical events, and they certainly didn't need to have their valve revised in any way. I suppose time will tell. There are a lot of dynamic variables that can impact valve durability. For example, the development of renal failure. I mean, if you live long enough and you have diabetes and hypertension and so forth, it raises the specter of other medical illnesses that can impact valve durability. But I think in very broad strokes, this was a very reassuring piece of data.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Nathan, for your time with us today. Again, watch this video and others on SCAI-TV. I appreciate the summary. Watch other summaries coming to you from SCAI-TV. This is Shadi Reyes from Detroit Medical Center. Sandeep, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.